Integrity in video games journalism is important to me. That's why before I start this review, I wanted to inform you that the developer of this game reached out to me with a request to review it and provided me with a physical cartridge of the game. No other monetary payment was provided. But regardless, it's my job to inform you of this before we begin. Now, on with the show! On this show, we do our best to come up with fun skits and silly moments to put a smile on your face, well, at least hopefully, while you learn about a game that we feature. And today is going to be a little different because I wanted to let the game and the experience speak for itself. So, we'll be taking a look at the Nintendo Switch version of Freedom Planet on the Nintendo... Hi there! Where'd you come from? That's a photo from my childhood. That's my house. That's my childhood house. How did you get that? You came from my childhood? Alright, well, it looks interesting. I haven't played a homebrew NES game in a while, so let's go for it. Homebrew and indie games on classic systems seem like a dime a dozen these days. Every other month there seems to be a wave of new titles being developed for consoles like the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Sega Genesis, and even the Sega Dreamcast. Sometimes it's tough to wade through the sea of games to find something that truly feels classic. Enter homebrew developer Chris Lincoln and his studio Optivania, which has a history of working on ROM hacks such as Castlevania Course of Mysteries. Lincoln has a deep knowledge of the 6502 developer assembly code that are used to develop Nintendo games, and he decided to make a new game called ROLLIE for the system he is most familiar with. So is this a game that could fit in with the classics? Before you even put the cartridge in, it's worth noting that Lincoln was successful running a Kickstarter to produce physical copies of the already completed game. These will be completed using all new see-through smoke-colored cartridges with high-quality label prints. There's also a box and manual coming in the near future, so let's take ROLLIE for a spin. Story-wise, the game is pretty light. 2 raccoons, a male brown one named Rollie, and a female purplish pink one named Lori, are navigating their way through the forest, taking on their fellow animals? Though the website advises they are being greedy, I didn't really see much of a motivation to defeat the enemies, other than it being a required mechanic in the game. This wasn't exactly communicated in any sort of in-game cutscene, which would have at least given Rollie and Lori a bit more depth, but honestly with a game like this, it's not that important. ROLLIE is all about simple pick-up and play gameplay, and that's what really takes me back to the golden era of NES gaming nostalgia. Moving the character around with the D-pad feels smooth, and jumping doesn't feel too floaty. I mostly always felt like I had control of Rollie and Lori, though this changes in later levels depending on various environmental conditions. Elements of nature like rain and wind, as well as ice, definitely amps up the difficulty, but in all the right ways. Rollie and Lori jump with the A button, and the B button surprisingly does quite a bit depending on the situation. See, there's a bar up top which has many different icons and numbers associated with them. Jumping on or rolling into an enemy will mostly defeat them in one hit, with the obvious exceptions to tougher bad guys, mini and final bosses. When defeated, they can provide your hero or heroes with various different pickups or power-ups. Collect 100 clovers to earn an extra life. There's also marbles that can be picked up, and these are used as weapons against enemies. Though the supply can run out pretty quick, it'll reset back to the standard amount of 10 after each death. You're also given the ability to form bubbles as temporary platforms to jump on. Pressing the B button with the directional pad up launches a single bubble to allow you to reach higher ground. But just remember, what goes up does come down. These also reset after dying back to the default of 5, and while I didn't use them as much earlier in the game, they became immensely helpful in later stages. The main hook of ROLLIE's gameplay has a lot in common with both Sonic the Hedgehog and Metroid. Wait, what? By pressing the down button, your character rolls up into a ball, and if you are going through a tight path or just want to attack while rolling, pressing B during your rolling action allows whatever you touch to be hit, almost like dropping bombs in Metroid. This is recognized thanks to a flash on the screen and a sound effect cue, which, oddly enough, sounds and looks similar to the screw attack in, you guessed it, Metroid. The physics for the balled up motion rely heavily on a bouncing mechanic that's really smart and innovative. If you jump from a higher ledge and go into ball form mid-air, you'll bounce higher off the platform that you land on, sending your raccoon off on an airborne journey. Though your bouncing may get slower and less bouncy as you run out of momentum, you can get more air by landing on enemies as you boink off their bodies. I had a ton of fun playing around with this element of the game, and even if you mess up and can't reach a higher platform, there's always a way to get up there thanks to intuitive level design. Just move backwards in your travels and you'll most likely find a platform to get you back up to a higher level. That, or you can use the bubbles as platforms. In later levels, there are entire sections devoted to more advanced platforming involving these ducks that you can land on and use to gain traction and height, though these can be a bit tricky to use if you're moving from duck to duck. I never really ran into a situation where I was stuck and couldn't progress. Most enemies consist of snakes of 4 different sizes, possums that speed up, skunks that can spray you and cause you to lose certain features temporarily, foxes that toss marbles at you, bats that fly into you, and more. There's different power-ups in the game that can help you advance in the levels faster and easier. Typically, these are grabbed from enemies when they die, or if you touch flowers that are scattered across the levels. Your marbles and bubbles we've already covered, but you can reclaim health with a heart power-up. Then there are special food-based items that all have different effects on Rollie and Laurie. Grab the blue soda to be able to jump higher than normal, or get the brown soda to allow Rollie to jump and land on the ground, crushing his foes with a quake pound. The green soda makes Rollie walk on air, but it's a bit tough to use as you have to jump first, then press the direction that you want to go. Speaking of achieving greater distances, a few more icons help with this, such as the balloon, and as mentioned earlier, the duck. You can turn invincible if you find a hot dog, and the cake allows almost all enemies to befriend you. Normally in the game, the enemies aren't able to become friendly without the cake, aside from the cat, who seems to be easy to befriend. He'll typically pass you some sort of additional item, very similar to the rest of the enemies when they turn friendly. Hey, stop digging in that trash can. Wait, what'd you find in there? What are you trying to say? My channel is trash? There's a snakeskin power-up that lets you jump around while wearing a snakeskin. The controls felt okay here, but after dying you end up losing the skin anyways. It kinda reminds me of Super Mario Bros. 3 when you get the Hammer Brothers suit and pretty much lose it right away. Hopefully you get the red ringed checkpoint scattered throughout each level, but if not, grab the green ring if it appears to increase the amount of clovers you have by 50. Blue rings are last, and those are going to take you to a new level outside of your area. While the levels do run out of time, it's very rare when it happens, but the environmental hazards are a nice touch which amp up the difficulty. Ice caverns are known to cause slippage, but rain and snow act very similar when it comes to platforming. Similar to Ninja Gaiden 2, there are environmental hazards that make things more treacherous regarding travel. By pulling you in either direction, you'll need to put your best efforts forward to avoid death. Thankfully, unlimited continues and a nice and short password system are a huge help. I also really like that it doesn't matter if you play single or multiplayer, the game lets you choose 1 or 2 players, and when you choose to continue, single or multiplayer passwords are the same. To explain, even if you start a single player game, you can get a password after each level, and if you decide to use it later on, but you want to play with a friend, you can pick up in the same level where you left off in single player, and likewise, if you advance in the multiplayer, use the code you get in multiplayer to advance in single player as well. It doesn't matter, and that's awesome. One other neat feature for multiplayer involves swapping between characters. If you press the select button during multiplayer, you'll change to Laurie, and it'll be the other player's turn to play. They can switch back and forth seemingly all they want, as can you, but it's only when whoever is playing hits the button. But if one player is low on health, you can switch to the other player and they'll have a full life bar. That'll allow you to try to finish the level so you don't have to start over or start from the checkpoint. This makes multiplayer sessions easier, but either way, the game's journey is only last lasting a few hours your first go around. While the graphics here are mostly muted palettes of browns and greens, it's a fitting environment for a raccoon to be seen in, so it makes sense. Plus there's plenty of sky blues as well. The levels traversed all look appropriate to their color schemes, and while the graphics don't blow me away when it comes to being detail oriented, they get the job done. Similar to that, the music has feel-good vibes that I can picture being converted to a sweet indie rock or shoegaze band perfectly. Some of it is more marchy, other tunes are bouncier, such as the first 3 levels music, which repeats later in the game. Honestly, all the music is fun to listen to. I just wish there was way more of it. I've read an interview with the developer that he created his own sound engine on the NES and then applied it to ROLLIE. He also mentioned that he didn't want to have less repetitive and shorter tracks and opted for longer tunes that repeat more frequently, so I suppose there's a give and take involved. ROLLIE's darn good family-friendly fun with a heck of a challenge is spread across 16 levels. Be prepared to have your platforming skills tested, but the test is worth seeing until the end. While I wish there were more cutscenes to give the game a bit more character, ROLLIE's simple story mixed with a deep flow of gameplay, along with serviceable graphics and music, is a refreshing feeling for a homebrew title. I eagerly await a future ROLLIE 2. Well, that's all the time we had for today. Stay tuned for... Hey, get out of that trash can! Come on, stop. Really? I had a lot of fun with that. Oh yeah, that's trash. Oh, I am definitely reviewing that. Honestly, it's just misunderstood. Maybe I'll talk about it soon. Some people like it, some people hate it. I actually really like it. Now you're just gonna piss the whole internet off. Hey, I told you, stop digging through my trash. You're only gonna find garbage there. Go on, get out of there. Scram, get going. Stop it right now. Don't make me sick my dog on you. Go on, get out of here. Thank you to the following patrons. Your support means the world to me. Want more Dude You Haven't Played This Game? Make sure to stay subscribed to the channel and check out these videos enclosed below. As always, thanks for watching.